Hey guys, Chris here back again from C&H Smallings, and I'm testing out my new camera here. I ordered a replacement for the my old Sony Bloggy camera here, and I'm doing the first video here for YouTube by this one specifically. We got in front of us here a good old tried and true Stihl straight shaft professional string trimmer. This is the one entitled FS80R. This is their commercial duty line. So there you go, got your identification right there. Has a straight shaft on this one with the professional duty bump head on the end of here as well too. This guy brought it to us because he claims that he went online and he purchased a brand new carb, and he basically could not get the machine running at all for him. He kept on dying out. He was telling us over here. And he brought it over to us because he was basically fed up with the results he was receiving himself after he put the new carburetor on the machine. What we found over here was the guy missed two critical components, two critical steps, I should say more precisely, for this Stihl machine. The first thing was, unfortunately, he put the intake gasket behind the carb body where it actually mates up to the manifold on here. He basically reversed the carb manifold gasket and was not sealing properly on here, for one thing. The next problem was he had an extremely rich gasoline mixture in the actual gas tank down here as well too. It was basically, when I actually got the thing started over here, it was just blowing out a cloud of smoke like nuts out here. This gas was like super rich, like the guy dumped like a big fat batch of motor oil or something. I honestly don't know what he put, but the gasoline, it looked like totally black in there. So we also had to take the muffler off over here on the air side, check out the ports. The ports looked relatively good. He didn't have any scoring whatsoever on the exhaust side. The compression was about 115 right now on the compression when it was cold tested right here for the compression, because you always have to verify your compression and spark first before you do anything else on the machine, because if you have a bad scoring on the cylinder and the compression is low and you don't have any spark, it's pointless even repairing the machine, because you're basically going to need a whole new cylinder assembly, because if your piston cylinder all scored up down inside there, you're going to need a whole new short block, or I should say top end of the machine right here for that. The other problem was the guy had a lot of debris in his actual air filter. This one has a dual element air filter. You have a foam, and you have your a cotton mesh screen on here as well too for this one right here. So he's a dual element air filter, because this is like their Pro Series line as well too, guys. The other thing was, unfortunately, the guy did not actually clean out the fuel tank, fuel lines, and fuel filler prior to installing the new carb assembly on the machine here. And what he did was he recontaminated the new carburetor on his machine after he put the new one on and tried to pump it up and suck the gas in there. Because I was comparing this one right here to a couple other ones I was working on this past week here, and this one was pumping up kind of slow on here. So I basically took the carb off, put the carb in our ultrasonic George clearance tank, and we thoroughly cleaned out the fuel tank on the machine. You have to clean out your fuel tank if you're going to put a new carb on a machine. I cannot stress that more, because if you have debris, water, sediment, any kind of crap in your tank on here, it has to be purged and it has to be completely bone dry before you put a new carb on the machine to thoroughly test it after you get done installing the new carb assembly in there for that. So you have to clean out the tank first, then put the carb on the machine, then put the whole thing back together as you normally do out there for that. The other thing I should mention is the fuel filter he had on here. He had some debris in there as well too, so we basically blew out the whole fuel lines, fuel filter, and the tank was totally purged of all debris in there as well too. Plus we did see some gasoline with water contamination down inside it, so he did have contamination issues with the machine when he installed the new carb on the machine right here for that. So we'll go ahead and fire this thing up here for you and see how this thing's running fine now. We did have to remove the limiter caps on the actual high and low speed settings on here, because unfortunately after we took it apart on here, it didn't want to stay within certain parameters on here, probably because I have a BPMR 4A spark plug NGK type, and we also are running the Opti 2 fuel mix in here with the non-ethanol gasoline. I basically stress that all the time. Use non-ethanol gasoline in these machines out here, guys, because your machine will last longer. It'll start easier, and you'll have less fuel problems out there as long as you keep your fuel clean and fresh at all times right there for that. So let me put my camera down here real quick, and we'll go ahead and get this thing started right here for that, guys, for the demonstration. Okay, I got started, guys. Go ahead and gun this sucker up. It's been sitting for probably about a half an hour out here, so the actual air temperature is about 48 degrees with the wind chill factor. So it's running great now, idling okay right there as well too, and it's gunning up perfectly fine as it is right now. That is how your Stihl should be running when the carb is clean and the fuel system has been thoroughly cleaned out and you have good, fresh gasoline in the machine, guys. We have a back shot here for you. Running great. That's the FS80R Professional Series String Trimmer. I'll go ahead and shut the thing off here. Go ahead and gun it up one more time here for you guys. Nice crisp throttle. Okay, go ahead and shut it off here. Shuts off perfectly fine, as it should. And the machine's basically ready to go back to the client as it is right now. So that's everything we did on the machine. This is a relatively good machine here. This is the Pro Series FS80R designation, made by Stihl. And like I said before, if you do have a machine that's hard starting or will not start, always check the exhaust port first on here for any kind of scoring or contamination or anything else like that, because two strokes are notorious for scoring up the cylinders, especially on the exhaust side. And make sure the exhaust port is clean, and make sure there's no scratch, anything else like that as well too. And always do a compression test by removing your spark plug on the top here and sticking a compression gauge down inside there, because you'll need at least 90 minimum, absolute bare minimum PSI. Me personally, I recommend at least about 100 to 105 personally, because anytime you get below that threshold right there, the machine becomes questionable out there, and it's going to be lacking power as well too, guys. So that's everything about the good old Stihl FS80R we were working on here today and this past week. So if anybody has any comments, questions, whatnot, feel free to leave me a message here, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible with any kind of basic questions about your machine. I'll see you guys. Have a nice day.